Hi viewers, welcome back. This is Literary Goa, the program that looks at books and authors from Goa and about Goa. Today we have with us a really special person because Tony Saldanha is someone who's based halfway around the world in Cincinnati actually. And he has worked for almost 3 decades with Procter and Gamble, been posted in a large number of countries all over the globe. Uh, Recently written a book called Why Digital Transformations Fail. If it sounds too technical, don't panic. He's going to explain to us what exactly it means. So, Tony, over to you. Would you like to tell us about your book, first of all, Why Digital Transformations Fail? And in simple English, what does it mean?
Yes, no, I would be delighted to do that. Firstly, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you and your audience. As a person from Goa, I am absolutely delighted to be here. So the book, Why Digital Transformations Fail, you're right, is actually not for IT technologists. It is for leaders, but then also normal people like you and me, because many people really don't understand the context behind the massive change that is happening around us. We all know that we can call anywhere on the world on WhatsApp for free today, whereas only 20, 30 years ago it would cost a fortune to make a call somewhere, or that you can order a taxi online, or you can do shopping online. And all of that is actually a massive industrial revolution. It's called the fourth industrial revolution. And just like the first industrial revolution was about, the use of machinery and, the steam engine to change the way the world or the industry works. The second one was about how electricity was changing the world in the early 1900s. The third one, a few decades ago, was about the birth of the internet. The fourth one, which is digital, is all about bringing together the biological field, the mechanical field, the social field, and digital all together. So digital is changing all of those, which explains why you have things like not just WhatsApp, but Facebook and so on and so forth. It explains why you have genetics, genetic medicine, and so on and so forth. It explains why you have drones and other things that are doing, and robots that are doing factory work. So if that is digital revolution or digital disruption, digital transformation is changing the way companies used to operate, which is in the third industrial revolution. So you might, do your logistics, or you might do your marketing a certain way. And we know how marketing has changed from TV to now social media. With digital transformation, it's all about doing it in a totally different way. Now, 70% of those attempts to upgrade yourself, digital transformations fail. And my book is all about why that happens, or actually, more accurately, it's based on my own experience of how to make them successful.
But before we get into the technicalities of that, what I found interesting from what you were saying is that the world is changing, and it is, because we can communicate. Even a station like this,
Yes.
we can make it possible, or
Yes.
the diaspora can communicate with
Yes.
Goa much more effectively.
Yes.
It's like almost there is a Goan village in parts of Canada and parts of the US and things
Yes.
like that. Having said that, I still think that sometimes we are slow to get onto this bandwagon. Of course, your perspective is of industry. What are the implications for a state like Goa when it comes to digital transformations?
I think the implications are, hopefully very, very positive. I tend to be an optimist on all of this change. And I think that the world is going to be disrupted or changed by people and societies that want to learn, and they are not afraid of changing. I find that in Goa, you have people that are willing to try anything, that are willing to take risks, that are mobile, that are able to go anywhere. That's not true in many of the developed societies. And so the real disruption, you never know, maybe the next Amazon or the next Alibaba may actually come from one of these places. And the same is true also for society, right? Um, because society, whether it is agricultural people or solar, the combination of digital and those can change the way society works. So now you have, not to get too technical, but certain technologies called blockchain, which are changing the way electricity is not just generated on rooftops, but is sold in an open market in really developing places like Africa. And that technology is actually better than anything that's available in the US. So and as I said, I'm an optimist, but I really think that this is an opportunity of historic proportions for Goa.
So Tony, you actually, at the moment we didn't mention it, but you have your own consulting firm called Transformant.
Yes, I do.
And before that, 27 years at Procter and Gamble.
Yes.
And you were posted all over the world. Tell us a bit about your career and how it evolved and your studies. And
Yeah, that's an interesting story by itself.
you grew up in Nagpur, right?
I grew up in Nagpur. My father was in the Indian Railway, so I was actually born in Kharagpur, but really spent most of my growing years in Nagpur. And I did my engineering there, and then went on to do an MBA in marketing and finance at IIM Lucknow. And my own background from an educational standpoint was not IT technology. In fact, my MBA was in marketing and finance, and it was only when I started looking for jobs during campus interviews that I realized that half the companies that came there were from technology, IT technology. And so I took a job with Tata Unisys, later on became TCS.
Which was a growing firm then. No?
Which was a very big and growing
Fast.
firm at that time. And then I worked in India a couple of years and then went to the US. But then after about 4 years of working, I came back because I didn't consider myself a technologist. And I was afraid that Unisys Corporation, by that time I was working on contract with them, they considered me a technical expert, a global technical expert. And I was like, no, that's not me. I'm a finance, I'm a marketing person. So I actually came back to India as a result of that. And then joined Procter & Gamble because P&G, as you may know, is known as a marketing company. And they didn't have openings in the marketing department, but they did in IT. And I was like, okay, so let me start with IT and then quickly shift to marketing. But over time, I realized I didn't have to do that. And P&G kept giving me these opportunities. I was in Japan for a couple of years and then in the Philippines, came back to India as the CIO of the P&G company in 1995. And then they posted me to Singapore in an Asia role, and then to Cincinnati, which is the headquarters, in 99. And then, again, back and forth, I was the CIO of the global Gillette company in Boston, and again, shipped out to Switzerland and Singapore for a few years. So it's been a great career, and after all of these years, I've reconciled to the fact that there is no such thing as, you're a marketing person or you're an IT person. You have to just use all of those disciplines to get your job done.
And Transformant, your current company?
Transformant is something that I started a year ago after I left P&G. I retired from P&G because I wanted to take this experience of having done so much change using technology at Procter & Gamble and my own convictions that the fourth industrial revolution is a time of great opportunity. By the way, not just for companies, but for countries, for societies, and for individuals. And I wanted to bring some of that experience to make that successful in terms of a change.
You told us about digital revolutions, but you didn't tell us why it fails. So in a nutshell, or,
Yes, that's another very good question. In a nutshell, it fails for two reasons. One is because leaders of companies, leaders of government, all get taken in by the hype and the confusion of what exactly is digital transformation. So, depending on what side of the spectrum, hope or fear, that you subscribe to, there's so much information. On the fear side, there are all of these articles and commentary about how the robots are going to take all of our jobs, right? On the hope side, you have great possibilities of, maybe living many, many more decades, or about how AI or artificial intelligence can improve anything that we do.
Or
Right?
working for a short part of the week instead of having to work the
Exactly,
full week.
exactly. And so there is such a confusion about what is reality. So then the first reasons why transformations fail is because leaders want to do something about it, but they're not sure what to do about it. And so that is a huge waste. It's a little bit like, you say, I think I want to go to space, but you're not really clear that you want to land on the moon. And so, you can go off in many directions as a result. So it may sound trivial, but, most of the times I find that there's, a huge opportunity there. The second reason is that when they do start to change, there is a lot of confusion about what digital transformation is. Many people consider it to be, just IT software or hardware. So, let's use software to do some things. In reality, and this is the reason why I talk about the fourth industrial revolution, it's about being successful in a completely new industrial age. So you have to change, yes, technology, but you have to change education, you have to change culture, you have to change the system. So it is completely rewiring the way societies and individuals work. And most of the methodology that's used to execute that really doesn't look at it from that angle. So the combination of the two, being unclear about the goals and not being able to execute correctly, results in 70% failure rates.
I like the story you told to the US Daily Review in that sense about Alice in Wonderland.
Yes, it's kind of funny, but it's true. Uh, you know, I talked about how senior leaders are a little confused about, what is the right goal. And I use Alice in Wonderland because, you will remember the incident in the book when Alice asks the Cheshire Cat, Cheshire Cat, which way do I go? Where do I go? And the Cheshire Cat says, well, it depends on where you want to get to. And she says, I don't really care. And then he says, it doesn't really matter which way you go in that case. And it sounds funny, but it is really symptomatic of what happens, because many leaders, go attend conferences, or, they read some exciting books, and they come to their company and say, let's become digital. And then I've had the opportunity in consulting of saying, okay, but what do you want your company to be? And they said, well, I want it to be digital, but they're not really specific about what they want to change. And that's Alice in Wonderland.
The concept of a retail apocalypse, which you mentioned,
Yes.
could you explain that? How does it work?
So the retail apocalypse is a term that's been coined over the last few years to describe the major shift in the retail industry. Of course, in India, we're all familiar with what Flipkart has done to shopping, and Amazon India, and so on and so forth. And that phenomena is the same all over the world, right?
Is it a good thing or a bad thing?
I think right now it is not necessarily, it's an inevitable thing, but the way it is playing out is not well, right? And that's one of the reasons I want to address the successful change. So the way it is playing out today is that, you have these companies, the online companies, or even, the big multinationals that are just kind of coming in, and you have many of the mom and pop stores and others that are suffering as a result, right? And the reason retail apocalypse happens is that these large companies, and they don't have to be online, even major retail chains, the way they use technology for warehousing, where they can completely identify and move things using robots without humans in these warehouses, is absolutely amazing. And obviously mom and pop stores don't have anywhere that ability, and therefore you have, food that gets wasted, or, products that get lost, right? So the way it is being executed is that you have companies with resources that are able to use digital to their advantage. That's what I meant by saying it's inevitable. The fact that digital technology is being used in retail is as inevitable as the horse carriage industry during the second revolution eventually being replaced by cars, right? What needs to change there is, we need to, and this is really some of the work Transformant tries to do, is to help these small and medium enterprises understand that they can use that technology as well as the bigger companies. And because they are smaller companies, they are more nimble, they can move faster. And so they can make decisions and they can become the next Amazon, right? So that's what I mean by saying it's
a real
inevitable,
thing.
but it's possible to be executed much better.
Tony, tell us about your growing up. I mean, you were a Goan expat, and growing up in Nagpur, the odds are against you, but still, I think we do come across people, a few Goans who have conquered the top. How did you achieve it, and what's your advice to young people?
Oh, wow. Well, I don't know that I've conquered the top, but I feel that I'm very privileged and I'm very blessed in that manner by the support I've had and the opportunities. So I think the first thing to give credit where credit is due is the role that the family plays in giving you the education and the opportunity.
Strong sense on education.
Absolutely. I think...
especially from the women folk in that sense. And
that is absolutely true. In our case, it was both our father and mother who, even when times were difficult, when money was tight, education was always prioritized. And so, so the first thing I would tell parents is, even when you have to make some tough calls, education is your best strategy to pull yourself out from whatever situations you have. The second thing that I think worked in my favor was the ability or the flexibility to just, go to wherever there was a bigger opportunity. So if it happened to be, I talked earlier about how I thought I wanted to be in marketing, but eventually it was like, no, I really don't care, because the bigger ability to drive change happened to be in IT, and I was perfectly fine with that. Or, the flexibility to move if that's what it takes. So that's the second thing. The third piece of advice, which I actually think that the youth of today has that I didn't have necessarily, is the availability of information online and the ability to learn online. I've always been very curious, and I read a lot, and nowadays, of course, I spend a lot of time. I force myself to read at least about 5 articles every day and try and post something about it every day. But, with things like online universities, Coursera, you can be in Goa and you could be taking lessons that MIT posts, right, online. So that's another really important thing, especially in the context of industrial revolutions, where if you are able to educate yourself, then where you are in the world really doesn't matter.
Tell us something about the Goan community in Nagpur, because we've heard so much about it, or Kharagpur for that matter.
Yeah, Kharagpur, unfortunately, I have very little memory. Okay. I left there, my family left there when I was 4 years old. Okay. And so, not much remains in my memory. But Nagpur was actually a very fascinating community, because I think Nagpur has always historically had a lot of Goan presence. We were talking earlier about some of the big Goans there. And so, although the Goans were distributed, there were always pockets of locations, usually around the church.
Right.
And in certain locations.
The school, Francis de Sales?
In Francis de Sales was, again, where I went, and it's a fantastic school. And there were, St. Joseph's Convent and St. John's School and others. And then also kind of moving up to college, the Goan and Catholic institutions there were very, very strong.
Which ones?
SFS, St. Francis de Sales, also had a college, which was still is very highly reputed. And there were many others there like that. And so the Goan diaspora, the Goan community, kept in touch with each other, usually around church-oriented activities, and then, through educational activities. And so, so it was a little bit of mini Goa. You had, all of the same feasts and, the availability of pork and, other things to make sorpotel or, whatever you want. So it's very nice.
What was your message to the university students, Goa university students yesterday?
Oh, yes, I did have the opportunity to speak to the MBA and IT students. My message, a little bit along the lines of what I was saying, is that I told them the world as you know it is going to be completely disrupted, right? And then the second message I told them was, and because of that, there has never been a better time than now to be in your shoes. And then I went on to reassure them that although those two statements sound contradictory, I hadn't had Fanny, and I was going to reconcile why, a huge change, a huge disruption in their lives could still translate into a big opportunity.
What are the challenges waiting for you now that you've done so much, achieved so much? And
Honestly, I feel a sense of almost like a sense of duty to help the youth, to help companies, to help the place that I came from, Goa in India, to navigate this big change that is happening around us. I've been very fortunate. Many of the things that you worry about when you're young about your family, are you going to have enough money to survive, things like that. I'm fortunate in that I don't have to worry about that right now. But at the same time, I feel very privileged because I am in that situation. And so I think it feels right to be able to give back some of that.
And you're planning a release of the book shortly in Goa?
I am, yes, we are. So I will be back again in a month, in September. We're still trying to lock down the actual venue, but hopefully somewhere around Panjim, and the dates as well, somewhere around the 20th of September. And again, I think this is an opportunity to try and bring the industry and the educational institutes, and hopefully students and people that want to learn about how we can make this disruptive era into a big opportunity for everybody.
When it comes to India and Goa and the diaspora, what do you see as its strengths and weaknesses at this point of time?
I see that the biggest strengths continue to be what we have historically been, which is we're a mobile community, we're a very flexible community. We're a community that at least in parts, is very interested in learning, right, in education. And that is exactly what you need during periods of industrial revolutions, right? I think our biggest opportunity is in organizing, in being much more strategic and even coherent about how we're going to use something to our advantage. We were talking earlier on that, even in the diaspora outside India, there is such a big opportunity to get, the Goans together in different places, in Toronto or, even Cincinnati or New York. There's so many Goans that are doctors, that are scientists, that, are CEOs of large companies. But we're not really a community in that particular sense, that you have other communities from other countries or even from India that do that, right? And I think maybe that is our biggest opportunity, and that's one of the reasons I really love the work that you and CCR TV are doing, because you have to use media to be able to drive.
And in today's world, we really don't have an excuse for not linking up or not keeping in touch, because distance is not.
Distance is not an issue. You have everything from social media, not just Facebook, but within that, or even WhatsApp, you can have communities for Goans, and this is an opportunity to even, even if you don't want to travel, the ability to advise each other. If somebody is trying to get into an IT field and they have questions about what to do, or their parents have questions, we can reach out and connect.
So while on that point, a word of advice to someone who wants to follow your footsteps, of course, which are tough, but just a word of advice.
Oh, I'm sure, the kids of today will be much more successful than I ever hoped to be. But my first advice is embrace technology. We know that technology can be confusing. When you're trying to get into education, and by the way, I'm not preaching that everybody needs to become an IT professional. In fact, you should not, right? I think you have to be an applied technologist. So if you're a teacher, you have to really understand how technology is going to change the way teaching is done, right? Learning online, tools that you can use, and disrupt teaching using technology. You are a good example of that in what you've done. I mean, we were talking earlier before the interview of how you started originally, with newspaper and, and here we are, right, doing cable TV. So that's the first, embrace technology and figure out how you can learn. And you can learn online. You don't have to necessarily take IT classes. And secondly, focus on application of technology, not just writing programs or writing software, but in whatever field you are, figure out how you can use technology to disrupt it.
Thank you so much, Tony, for spending your time here. It's been a pleasure talking to you and getting to know of you and your work. And had your sister Flori not mentioned that my brother is down and this is what he's doing, he's talking at the university, I might have missed your path. I'm so happy that at short notice you came over to CCR TV and recorded this interview. Thanks so much and all the best, and hope you can keep a lot of contacts with home too.
Oh, I would love to. I want to thank you, Rico, for organizing this and your audience for listening to us today. Thank you very much.